The only news show for iPad kids and their neglected elder siblings. I'm your host, Ella Yurman. Tonight, we've got a live in-studio interview with a famous gay reality star. Updates on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Jess Elgin is here. And a deep dive into one of the internet's most maniacal women. But first, in Shut It Down news, Wired recently found and investigated an AI-powered nude generator that nudifies photos. 1, gross. 2, skill issue. I nudify people the old-fashioned way, by showing them pictures of my doggo and playing Riptide on ukulele. I had sex once in 2014. In Houston, a group of 3 boys ages 11, 12, and 16 were arrested after robbing a Wells Fargo. It just goes to show you're never too young to have a good idea. The National Guard is checking bags in the NYC subway to combat the psychological effect of fearing violent crime. They're replacing it with the psychological effect of a National Guard officer pulling a tampon from your bag and screaming, "What is this?" Hillary Clinton and Lin-Manuel Miranda are throwing a Broadway-themed Biden campaign fundraiser. That's right. Hillary Clinton, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and theater people who paid up to $5,000 for a ticket, all in the room together if, Hochul wants to call the National Guard on that. Elliot Page is producing a VR experience about Brooklyn's queer history. Them magazine reports, the exhibit really makes you feel like you're underemployed and unstably housed. Russia recently added LGBT movement to its list of extremist and terrorist organizations. That's incredible news. I had no idea Russia was such a huge fan of the show. And now a much needed update. The US and Israel are nearing 6 months of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, with over 32,000 reported fatalities, likely a severe undercount. Over 1.1 million Gazans are out of food. As recently as March, Israelis were driving to the Gaza border and blocking aid trucks from getting in, which is the #1 worst reason to get in your car and drive 50 miles. If you're driving 50 miles, it better be for dick so crazy you can't even tell your friends about it. Meanwhile, an Israeli rap song was released that tells Gazans they will blow up your house for free. A white rap song so evil it would be improved by adding a verse from Chet Hanks. On Monday, the UN Security Council voted 14-0 for a temporary ceasefire, with the US abstaining instead of vetoing like they have in the past. It says a lot that the most progressive thing the Biden administration has done in months is literally abstinence only. Whoa, what? Hold on. It's a message from the White House? Hey, Ella. Huge fans of the show. We noticed that you're talking about Gaza. That's so gay of you or whatever. The White House is working really hard. We've actually airdropped aid into Gaza. Yeah, aid via parachutes that are killing people and in trucks that the IDF are shooting at, killing hundreds of Palestinians in what's being called the Flower Massacres. The Biden administration thinks they can convince us that sending humanitarian aid to Gaza cancels out arming Israel. They're calling it that ad where Kendall Jenner gives a Pepsi to a cop strategy. But bragging about aid while arming Israel is like a mechanic bragging about fixing your brake light while puncturing your tires and calling your mom a bitch. Whoa. Another message from the White House. The Kendall Jenner ad was actually really well received by Republicans. Maybe try being bipartisan instead of just annoyingly bisexual, Ella. Anyway, you wouldn't know about the Flower Massacres based on how the New York Times reported it. Quote, as hungry Gazans crowd an aid convoy, a crush of bodies, Israeli gunshots, and a deadly toll. The New York Times couldn't be more passive if they were Michael Cera in a movie between 2007 and 2010. Speaking of the New York crimes, pro-Palestine protesters have noted an uptick in police brutality. In the NYPD's defense, protesters block traffic, and cops need to run red lights while texting and driving in order to not punch their wives in the face. Zionists love calling Palestine protesters Nazis, but if they were really Nazis, the NYPD would just leave them alone. Direct actions have continued to escalate. In February, U.S. Air Force member Aaron Bushnell self-immolated outside the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., while chanting Free Palestine. Queer indigenous playwright Victor Cazares is going on medical strike, foregoing HIV medication until the New York Theater Workshop calls for a ceasefire. What a low bar. Y'all belt dumb shit like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious all the time. I promise Ceasefire Now has way less syllables. In the rando update bucket, former professional boxer Floyd Mayweather recently visited Israel to show support. He's pictured here wearing almost as many Stars of David as he has domestic abuse charges. Mayweather heard that Israel was using symbols of Judaism to cover up wrongdoing, and he took that literally. The Intercept released an investigation about the questionable reporting process behind the Times' December 2023 story, Screams Without Words, which alleged Hamas deliberately used mass rape as a tool of war on October 7th. One of the co-writers of the Times' piece was an Israeli filmmaker with zero reporting experience, a fact the Times brushed over in their own self-conscious story this week. Israeli soldiers' video undercuts medics' account of sexual assault. The original article is still up with barely a correction, which makes sense when you consider that the Times' executive editor's Twitter banner photo is his own headshot. This is not the face of someone who apologizes. This is the face of someone who hits roadkill for stress relief. This is the face of someone who sits front row center at an AMC and laughs like this. Ha. This is the face of someone whose dad co-founded Staples. That's not even a joke. That's literally true. Can you imagine this bitch saying, ignoring war crimes, that was easy? Despite the Times' propaganda campaign, even celebrities are escalating calls for a ceasefire. Eric Andre was at a protest with If Not Now. Hunter Schafer was arrested while protesting with Jewish Voice for Peace. Boy Genius wore their Artists for Ceasefire pins at the Grammys. At the Oscars, Zone of Interest director Jonathan Glazer called out the Israeli occupation, which prompted a list of low-profile losers to sign a letter denouncing his speech. What's going on? This one's from, APAC, cool. Hey, Ella, we're not losers. We actually have a strong team of celebs. Michael Rappaport, Brett Gelman, Amy Schumer, and a bunch of background actors from shows you've never seen. Actually, speaking of randos, Ella, if you're interested, we think you'd be a great fit for the cause. Okay, I am looking for representation, but you, I'm not a rando. Celebrities aren't the only ones fed up. Democratic primary voters across the country are voting uncommitted, writing in Gaza or leaving President blank, depending on the state, to pressure Joe Biden into changing course on Gaza. Finally, being uncommitted is actually helpful. Hear that, random Bushwick Hebe who keeps trying to guess my debit pin? You were made for this. No, random Bushwick situationship was made for voting for Joe Biden. Oh my God. No one thinks this is genocide, by the way. Shut the up. Shut up, shut up. Anyway, that's not the only place that Biden is having trouble. At an event featuring Jared Kushner. Don't you dare mention Jonathan. ADL President Jonathan Greenblatt said, I really don't care how you vote. Biden's simping for Zionists so hard, and they don't even give a shit about him. Mom? The IDF are at your house? They say if I keep talking, they're gonna put you in the next rap video about bombing hospitals? And feature Chet Hanks? Guys, I gotta take this. If you want to help, we have links in the description to donate to GoFundMes for families trying to leave Gaza, ways to donate eSIMs for internet access, protest info, and more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Late Stage Live! Moving right along. In February, Alabama, a state that has banned abortion at all stages of pregnancy, with no exceptions for rape and incest, ruled that embryos created through in vitro fertilization, or IVF, should be considered children with rights. Here to talk about what this could mean for the future of IVF is evil, rich, gay guy and reality TV producer Randy Murphy.
Thanks so much, Ella. And I think you meant executive producer.
Same thing. So, you begged to be on the show to talk about IVF. Why is this issue personal for you.
The Alabama Supreme Court case is appalling. The plaintiffs were 3 couples who had children through IVF and froze the rest of their unused embryos. Then, a random patient roamed into the cryopreservation area, picked up the embryos, and then dropped them and destroyed them.
Yeah, and the couple sued the hospital and the fertility clinic. One of the lawsuits cited Alabama's 1872 Wrongful Death of a Minor Act, which was dismissed probably because it was a law from literally 1872.
But then, the state Supreme Court heard the case and ruled that an embryo, which is just genetic material, has the same rights as a child. Sorry.
Are you crying because the ruling is another way that Republicans are trying to control women's bodies?
No, I'm crying because I'm sitting here in the shit-ass studio and realizing that I've really hit rock bottom. I got canceled after discriminating against the woman on my shows who wouldn't snort coke with me. And your show is the only place that answered my booking emails.
Is that true? I did not know that. We should not have booked you.
But getting canceled gave me a lot of time to reflect on my actions. And by that I mean dream up a new reality show, Real Birthing Vessels of New York. A show where I find 3 women, pay for their IVF treatment, and in return, all they have to do is be okay with having cameras on them at all times and recognize me as their all-knowing God. Let's meet the cast.
I'm Jessica. I want to have a child by myself, but IVF is costly, so I need Randy.
Do your tagline.
I'm single, but the only thing I'm mingling is an egg and a sperm into an embryo. You're a hack writer, and I hope you fall so comedically that someone uploads it on YouTube.
I sense that loud and clear. Next.
My name is Amelia Litigious. I founded the first Great Gatsby-themed for-profit penitentiary. And now my husband and I want to create another prison in my womb.
God, that's so beautiful.
I'm Lisa AstraZeneca. If my baby isn't sexy, I'm throwing it out.
Okay, so as women doing IVF, how are you feeling about the Alabama ruling?
Ella, these girls have been getting transvaginal ultrasounds every day at the crack of dawn. They're too tired to think. Here's a better question. Who here has the biggest, thickest, Humpty Dumptiest ass eggs?
My eggs are as big as Alabama, and I've been manifesting conjoined embryos because twins make better influencers.
I'm concerned, especially in this post-Roe landscape, because defining embryos as children sets a dangerous precedent. A round of IVF typically involves creating multiple embryos to increase your chances of successfully having a baby, and it's not uncommon for embryos to be destroyed during the process.
Yeah, if an embryo is a child and not just Betty Crocker cake mix before it's poured into a bunt pan, does that mean that individuals, fertility clinics, and hospitals can be held liable for death every time an embryo is destroyed? New prisoners. What happens to frozen embryos? Are they frozen forever? If so, who pays for the storage? I feel like an extra frozen embryo is like a plastic yogurt cup you have to wash out before recycling. No one's looking. Just throw it in the trash.
Which is where my baby will go. If it's but ugly.
Alabama passed a law protecting IVF clinics from legal liability for destroying embryos, but that's only for the short term.
The problem for Republicans is that IVF is really popular. 86% of women and 83% of evangelical Christians support some form of IVF. That's like the one time those statistics will ever come close to each other.
I'm close to coming.
What?
Sorry. Live television makes me really horny, even if it's filmed in a sad trans woman's crash pad.
Just read these.
A lot of people rely on IVF. People with fertility issues, sure, but also cancer survivors who lost fertility during treatment. Some Republicans are at least nominally discussing IVF protection, but it will be hard for them to beat the rich conservative activists and lobbyists like the Heritage Foundation and the Alliance Defending Freedom, who are trying to get the whole party to codify embryos as children.
It seems like a clear example of establishment Republicans sort of splintering with the pro-life movement.
For sure. But Pro-lifers also know that keeping Republicans in office is the only way they can achieve their goals, so they're caught in a bit of a web.
Mama, kudos for saying that. For spilling. Okay, next question, my Laura Croft room waiters. Whose hot lobe did you collab with?
Nick Cannon. JK. Speaking of collabs, Randy promised I could plug my prison. Okay. Hi. Convicted of baby manslaughter. Don't end up in some Motel 8 ass jail. Stay at Speakeasy, a great Gadsby prison experience. Some prisons keep the lights on 24 hours a day as torture. We do too. But as a tribute to the F. Scott Fitzgerald classic, ours are green. I still haven't read that book.
You can't plug evil shit on here.
Ella, the wenches have to promote their sad little products. I can't pay for their IVF journeys if they don't make a little profit. There's a 70-30 revenue split between me and the women.
Check out my new line of Skinny Mommy Pregnancy Green Juice. It's full of nutrients the embryo loves sloshing around in it, and it gives you diarrhea, so you can stay skinty and avoid looking like a fat crone throughout your pregnancy.
No!
Fat Crone, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, has posited that IVF could be a states' rights issue, which would be terrible. Louisiana already considers embryos to be unborn children, and their IVF clinics have to store embryos out of state.
Aren't you forgetting something? It's in the contract.
Fine. As a states' rights issue, that would be really bad. But you know what's really good? My product, Donercum. It's just sperm donor cum, but I'm making it sound European. And to be clear, no one should purchase this, okay? Everyone should instead be finding ways to rob Randy.
That's no way to sell a product. Okay, let me try. It burns. That must mean it's working.
No, this. You're no better than the Republicans. You're just another cis guy with terrible skin trying to control women's bodies for money and power with no regard for what we're actually going through. Come on, girls.
What? Are you serious? Okay. My skin is gorgeous. People love me. And I am besties with Sarah Jessica Parker's dog sitter. You bitches would be nothing without me. God, that's good TV.
Randy Murphy and women who deserve better, everybody.
It may seem like Randy and other ugly, scary men like the Republicans run the world, and they do, but on Tuesday, Marilyn Lands, a Democrat, won a state house seat in Alabama after campaigning on access to abortion and IVF. She flipped the seat in the deep red state by 25 percentage points. This does not change the balance of power in the state, but proves that reproductive rights are an increasingly motivating issue for voters and are crucial for winning power in key states.
Hey, can we make sure we rob him before he leaves? We'll be right back. And now, a word from AIPAC's largest donor, Jess Elgene.
Conceived my plans for every Thanksgiving. I never even dreamed of your stuffing. I didn't know life could be this good. I can't believe we ever made small You're such a big part of the bigger picture now. I can't believe we ever made small talk. You're such a big part of the bigger picture now. What was it like to meet you? I only know what it's like to know you, but I'd be so happy to meet you again. If I should ever have children, when they open their tiny eyes, you'll be among the first to hold them. We're setting the bar real high. I can't believe we ever made small talk. You're such a big part of the bigger picture now. I can't believe we ever made small talk. You're such a big part of the bigger picture now. You make me feel safe in a world that makes me feel increasingly unsafe. You make me feel safe in a world that makes me feel increasingly unsafe. So I can't overstate how much it means to be able to watch shitty TV with you on your couch.
Welcome back! In our final story tonight, it's Women's History Month. Pew, pew, pew. And there's a particularly deranged woman we want to talk about. She's a 20-something Jewish Brooklynite with an overinflated sense of self-importance. And no, it's not me. It's, well, here's the thing. I have to be careful saying her name, because she uses her platform to mobilize alt-right internet psychos to dox teachers and send bomb threats to children's hospitals and violently harass people who post about being queer or trans. Not to mention she's litigious as hell. So we're approaching this desk piece the same way I approach cis men who think Paul Atreides is the good guy, with extreme caution. Her name rhymes with Slaya Bayachek. And she runs an alt-right anti-LGBT social media account that rhymes with Bibs of Wickwalk. Pigs of Dick Dock. Sibs of Licklock. Goddamn, I feel like Dr. Seuss. Was he also trying to avoid getting sued for defamation? Was the Grinch Hitler? Was the Cat in the Hat the President of the United States? Look, if you still don't know who we're talking about, check out the sources in the description. But also, I never said that. I'm not even a person. I'm more of a vibe. And you can't prosecute a vibe. Anyway, Chai Latte Pieneck is a former real estate agent who runs Yibs of Yik Yak, an account that promises to help you find your daily dose of cringe by reposting liberal videos, mocking them and sharing their information with her conservative audience. It's like America's Funniest Home Videos for the worst people you know. So America's Funniest Home Videos. In May of 2021, she began to focus the bulk of her harassment on queer and trans people, reposting, mocking, and doxing small queer creators under the guise of exposing evil trans ideology. Trans ideology? Shit! Now people are gonna know about the AFAB-only housing discourse. Jambalaya Cry on Meth tapped into the anti-trans culture war at exactly the right time. Within the next 2 years, her following grew from 1,000 to nearly 3 million on X, and nearly 500,000 on Instagram. As her followers skyrocketed, so did the relentless harassment and threats to the unsuspecting individuals featured on her page. We reached out to several people who have been targeted by fibs of Rick Ross and asked them about their experience.
My name is Sunny Leprod.
I'm Vishal Singh.
My name is Eli Ehrlich.
My name is Violet Stanza.
My name is Orion.
I use she, her pronouns. I am a stand-up comic.
My pronouns are they, he. I am an independent anti-fascist journalist and documentary filmmaker.
I use she, her pronouns. I'm a trans activist, researcher, and author.
I use she, they pronouns. I am a content creator, and I'm also a musician.
My pronouns are he, him, or sometimes they, them. I'm an artist, but I'm also a teacher. So I'm an assistant teacher to a kindergarten class.
I called my mom and was like, hey, just so you know, this happened.
I would see it, I would get those notifications, and immediate tank in my mental health. I would end up spending so much of the day like scrolling, responding to comments, deleting comments, blocking people, and it becomes really exhausting. But you definitely do notice that like immediate uptick in hate.
I will wake up the next morning to at least 400, 500, 600 hateful messages, many of them including death threats or calls for my death.
I've received thousands of death threats specifically because of her. I had a swastika mailed to my house. I'm sent pictures of dead trans people. I am sometimes emailed my own address as a not so subtle threat. I had, after she initially posted about me, I had over 6,000 letters, emails, and phone calls sent to my school trying to get me kicked out.
Well, I shut down a lot of my social medias pretty quickly. So, like, they're all private now, and I didn't get any, like, private messages. But a lot of the comments were wild. A lot of them were saying, like, oh, of course they look like that. Of course they, like, they look so mentally ill, like these are the people teaching our kids, and they think I'm gonna influence them. But when I teach, like I don't even like the kids don't even ask me anything about being trans. Like it has nothing to do with my teaching. There's another teacher in my county where the same thing happened to her. Like it happened to her multiple times. Like she was doxxed multiple times. So I'm not letting go of my private social medias anytime soon, and it sucks because I'm an artist, so I want my ideas and I want my stuff to get out there, but I can't. I'm scared that the same thing's gonna happen to me that happened to her.
I do get anxious to post reels, and I post a lot less, which has explicitly hurt my career as a comedian. And I get anxious about like posting things with people that I love who are not part of public facing life, because I don't want them to become a target by being associated with me. And like, yeah, occasionally I do have like little stress spirals about like someone finding my address online and coming to hurt me or my roommates more specifically.
There's a lot of things in my life, my personal joy, my, I don't post where I am anymore, right? Little things like that. I can't post online about things where I'm just having fun. I can really only do my journalism work or political commentary, because anything else just becomes a scandal, to the point where like me posting a photo of me cuddling with my cat becomes like a culture war point, where like a ton of fascist extremists on Twitter start like trolling me for a cat photo, and it's like, you can't even have that.
Honestly, the scariest part to me about getting posted on Libs of Stephen Crowder, any of these conservative websites, is that not so much the trolls who are anonymous, who are inevitably going to come and flood my page, but more that there are people in my life who I know, who I interact with, family members, people I went to high school with, like neighbors, etc., who follow these pages, who actively engage with this type of content on a regular basis.
I've had my address, my old apartment addresses, my current addresses doxed. I've had my social security number doxed. I've had my parents' addresses doxed, my family members doxed.
I was working at a high school when this happened, and I chose to leave that school, but I wasn't safe to go back to the old school because it was out there what school it was, what county it was, and like you can just Google the address. And I was like, the worst fear was that someone would be waiting in the parking lot for me, or like a parent who had seen that would just like lose their mind and try to come into the school. Like, stuff happens like that at schools all the time.
I am scared of those people because there are more of them and they are crazier. I worry that the wrong person is going to be scrolling on a deep dive to of TikTok or the PragerU Instagram page or Blair White's YouTube channel or just the wrong side of TikTok or whatever the fuck, and come across one of my videos and decide that today's the day that the transgenders are gonna remember and look at my Instagram and see that I am on a show with XYZ amount of trans comics that's at this time, at this place. The bar shows I'm on don't check if someone's carrying a gun.
It's bad enough when you look at your phone and you got 500 death threats, but when these things start manifesting into real world threats, people really physically coming to places that you either live at or used to live at, it becomes very real, and you have to start changing how you live your life. I've been assaulted many times. I've had my bones broken by right-wing extremists as they parrot these talking points that these right-wing figures use on Twitter. So for me, it's not very virtual when what these viral tweets, these false tweets about me, that's bad enough. But when some huge Proud Boy is saying those same tweets to me as he's shoving me and punching me and breaking the bones in my eye sockets while calling me slurs, it's no longer virtual harassment.
I don't know. If one of my friends got hurt because of something that I had said online, I would be truly and very literally inconsolable. I worry that I, by existence of being there, am putting my community in danger, and that has been, truly one of the hardest things to deal about with this.
Ribs of Slipknot promotes hate speech, transphobia, and racism, and spreads egregious claims, especially with regard to gender-affirming care. Behind the weak defense of just reposting what's already online, she directs the anti-queer bigotry of her audience towards unsuspecting people and institutions. Yeah, like a monster from the depths of hell, which is fittingly the location she has selected for her X account. That's real. That's not a joke. Self-aware queen. In the first 4 months of 2022, Yibs of Yap Yap targeted over 200 individual teachers, schools, and districts that had queer books on display in their libraries or had teachers who speak about queer issues in the classroom. This targeting led to multiple faculty terminations and bomb threats that forced schools to close for the day, leading students to declare, "Yay, but also boo." Over 24 different hospitals and providers across 21 states received violent threats due to her false inflammatory posts about gender-affirming care. In August 2022, Pibs of Pip Pop received media attention after falsely claiming that gender-affirming hysterectomies were being provided to minors at the Boston Children's Hospital and the Children's National Hospital. This was swiftly followed by bomb threats against both hospitals, the doxing of individual physicians, and comments suggesting that people start executing these doctors. The doctors were also called child molesters, pedos, groomers, and butchers. Ironically, a coalition normally only found in the Republican Party. Tweets from the account have also been linked to Proud Boys disrupting drag queen story hours and members of the Patriot Front threatening Pride events. We spoke to Vishal Singh, a reporter based out of LA, about cryo, wine and kvetch's ties to those far-right groups.
Right chick is someone who has kind of flirted with a lot of more hard-right groups, including some people associated with neo-Nazis. She has she kind of tries to pretend she has some distance from them, but she has responded positively and engaged with neo-Nazi and Holocaust denying accounts like Stone Toss, people like Jack Basibiak. She's gone on Elijah Schaefer's show, someone who has done a lot of anti-Semitism, who has made jokes about murdering trans kids. I mean, these aren't really the dog whistly kind of people. These are people that are very explicit about support for either anti-Semitism, neo-Nazism, or just general Holocaust denial. And she really kind of downplays that. She was positively replying to people like Jake Shields and others, basically sticking to only responding to their anti-LGBTQ plus content and then turning a blind eye to when these same people are denying the Holocaust or putting out blood libel or things like that. A big point of contention with her kind of issue with Stu Peters is him being well, he believes this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that Jewish people created trans people and they're the only reason trans ideologies exist. And so for Stu Peters and other neo-Nazis, some of which support work, the answer is very clear. The problem is Jewish people, as it always is with them. For her, I think she bounces around between kind of the vague anti-Semitic term of it's the globalists, or it's the deep state, or it's the Democrats, or it's just trans people generally. But the more ambiguity she has, the more kind of empty space she gives for Nazis to fill in that blank and say, oh, you know who it is, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Law enforcement is torn as to how to respond. They try to take all the threats seriously, but they also try to consider the trauma and ramifications of young school children experiencing repeated police emergencies, a dialectic too complex for most police. Now, you may be asking, why would an alleged woman do this? There are so many other great options, like not doing it and minding one's own business. Well, don't worry. Raya Time to Stretch answered that in a recent interview with Washington Post reporter Taylor Lorenz.
Just, COVID radicalized me.
Yeah. In what way?
When they were like forcing us to wear masks and not letting us leave our homes.
Yeah.
And, not letting us work and people losing their jobs. And then people now forcing a vaccine, an experimental vaccine, people dying from the vaccine.
Okay, girly. Most people got into sourdough or Among Us. Not alleged stochastic terrorism, but go off. Also, in that same interview, she clarified that while she was at the January 6th riots, she did not actually enter the Capitol, which means she's technically still a virgin. Princess Leia, that's a stretch, created the account that would become Zibs of Zip Zap Zop in November 2020 under the handle @Shia698305552 and amassed a small following on X by denying the existence of COVID-19 and spreading misinformation about the results of the 2020 presidential election. She then changed her handle to @Shia_Ray and then @Cuomo Must Go, demanding the resignation of then New York Governor Andrew Cuomo following his sexual harassment allegations, which, TBH, yeah. And then @Houseplant POTUS, tweeting as a houseplant in Joe Biden's White House. And then finally landed on Cribs of Micmac, cycling through more name changes and profile pictures than the most gender exploratory bitch you know. According to Slate, Shmaya started off as a reply guy, leaving comments on posts from prominent conservatives and shamelessly tagging alt-right and far-right heavy hitters on Twitter, a strategy she continues to use to this day, which really pisses me off, because I've been tagging John Hinckley Jr. for years. To no avail. Come on the show, John. We'll let you play your folk music. Cha-Cha Rah-Rah views herself as an independent journalist, despite promoting hoaxes and posting doctored footage. The tagline of the account is news you can't see anywhere else, which may be the only true piece of information on the page. Because it's not news, and you can't see it anywhere else because it's for the most part made up. Nevertheless, people flock to her in droves, like lemmings, if they were racist, and transphobic, and people. She also makes light of the violence her posts spur. USA Today released an article titled, "When Blibs of Blickblock Tweets, Threats Increasingly Follow," and she changed the account profile picture to a photograph of her posing with the paper and smiling. She also temporarily changed the account banner to a set of branded bombs. Ugh. Soon after, on a podcast, she claimed that she was proud of being a stochastic terrorist and that it makes her feel important, before meeting with Taylor Lorenz and saying that bomb threats are bad, but what does that have to do with me? She pulls the same moves online, creating incendiary posts, directing people towards teachers and children, and then deflecting and deleting the posts when things get violent. She claims she doesn't do this for the money or fame, and that she's not a blue-check journalist or politician, but Antaya's account has pretty much the support of every conservative nightmare you can think. Caitlyn Jenner, Tucker Carlson, and Joe Rogan, who called Fibs of FICFOC one of the greatest fucking accounts of all time, leading to a huge increase in followers. Elon Musk, who restored Sibs of Cockblock on X after it was suspended under previous ownership, frequently shares the account's posts on his own X profile. In 2023, Donald Trump had Jambalaya over for dinner at Mar-a-Lago. She received funding from Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee that allowed her to quit her real estate job and run the account full-time. And Grant Lally, a lawyer and Republican Party weasel, filed the trademark, making the account an official news reporter service.
She doesn't seem to have an actual ideology of any sort. She's just gonna latch on to whatever gets her paid. I don't think she doesn't hate trans people. I don't think she isn't disgusted by us, but I also think that if let's say it's reversed, and for whatever reason conservatives are really into trans people and they're willing to pay people to support trans people like they are like Republican candidates right now, she would be fully on that boat. I generally think it's grifty in a Candace Owens sort of way, where really have any political ideology before taking up TikTok mantle, and she seems to be gravitating to whatever can anger the most people. I find it hilarious she calls herself a citizen journalist. Like, in what? Where? She's at best a bigot and a provocateur, and she really doesn't seem to care about the impact she has on people. She definitely knows it's there, but she is willing to just ignore it.
Even if she doesn't actually believe in what she's promoting, it doesn't matter. She's influencing legislation. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' press secretary credits the account for opening her eyes to queer topics in schools, and more or less inspiring the Don't Say Gay bill. In March of 2024, the account accused Senators Bob Casey and John Fetterman of sending funds to a queer center in Philly that promoted a BDSM, kink, and fetish event. That same day, Casey and Fetterman cut the funds out of a proposed bill, later blaming the skittishness on his staffers and promising to push for LGBT funds in 2025. Pussy. Perhaps the most outrageous development occurred in January 2024 when Papaya Jambalaya Chai Latte was appointed to real-life political office in Oklahoma, a state she's only visited once. She was appointed as an advisor to the Oklahoma State Library Committee, despite not being an Oklahoma resident, a librarian, or an educator, by Superintendent Ryan Walters, a former teacher who's known as the state's top culture warrior for his opposition to unions and queer student rights. He declared that he was proud to have her on the team, even though her account led to a week of bomb threats at Tulsa schools. Okay, what is going on with Tulsa and bombs? First, the Black Wall Street Massacre, then this. What's next? A tepid second season of Paramount Plus's Tulsa King? Since her appointment, she's pulled books depicting gay and transgender people, as well as sex education, from public school libraries, categorizing them as porn. Ooh, what a way to tell on yourself. It should also be noted that while she's clearly desperate for attention, Baya Sweet Life on Deck wasn't publicly out as the face of Nibs of Nick Knock when it started. Her identity was revealed in a Washington Post piece by Taylor Lorenz, a piece that Gaia Gayagek claims was doxing in its own right, despite the fact that her information was accessible, and also anti-Semitic for mentioning her Orthodox Jewish faith. Gaia's account gained 200,000 followers the day after the story was published, and Lorenz's entire family was doxed in return. How does Pee Poo Poo keep getting away with this? Vagaries. Accounts like hers provoke violence but use vague language that allows her to deny responsibility for the act. Her account runs on vibes, terrible vibes, and you famously can't prosecute a vibe. While her account received a permanent ban on TikTok, they've only received temporary suspensions on other platforms. The account was suspended from Facebook after inciting death threats against Boston Children's Hospital workers, but that suspension lasted less than a day. Activists fought for Shopify to drop the Kids of Kids Bop merch shop, but Shopify defended it, saying, "We host businesses of all stripes and sizes with various worldviews." On the bright side, the Nazis she once collaborated with are turning against her. And she's no longer in DeSantis' good graces after making an inflammatory comment about Florida migrants. Seems like maybe something's gone down between her and Mr. Babylon B. The two are no longer working together. I don't know. There isn't really a bright side. But as evidenced by the gibberish nicknames and language used throughout the segment, this person is very hard to talk about. Also, we know the pseudonyms are not going to dodge a defamation case, but it's funny. And it's so hard to make this shit funny. Chaya Rayachik has made a career off of transphobia and trans moral panic, a twisted evolution of the gay marriage culture wars of yesteryear. Her threats have been taking up government resources and ruining lives. We were and still are nervous about running this piece because we know her minions will come for us and probably dox the people we interviewed again. But we can't just cower because that's exactly what she wants. In February, Libs of TikTok reposted a video stating transgenderism must be eradicated. While Chaya has not explicitly said this herself, it's clear that the goal of her platform is to make it less safe for queer and trans people to exist, and it's working. In April 2022, Libs of TikTok posted a video of Oklahoma public school teacher Tyler Rinn. It went viral, Rinn was harassed, and ultimately had to resign. 2 years later, at the same school, a 16-year-old non-binary student named Nex Benedict was beaten by a group of older students for defending their friend from bullying. Nex died the following day after being admitted to the hospital with multiple injuries to his head, neck, and torso. Advocacy groups pointed to Libs of TikTok as a major player in fostering such a hateful environment at the school, but Chaya has denied responsibility. Nex's death was ruled as a suicide by medical examiners, and while that ruling has been contested by those same advocacy groups, even if it was a suicide, to create a culture of hate that drives teenagers to suicide is still evil, Chaya. At the end of the day, it's pretty unrealistic for us to expect Libs of TikTok to face institutional repercussions for her actions. She's too protected, too wealthy, too connected, and too careful. Instead, as always, we have to look inwards towards community and solidarity.
I think the best response to that is number one, solidarity with each other and with the queer community. And that means more than just tweeting and support. That means being willing to show up in person and put your body on the line and be militant in defense of trans lives, in defense of queer lives, and make sure that whether this hate is in online spaces or whether it's manifesting in real life, like school boards and drag queen story hours, to make sure that that hate is rejected and countered in large numbers. I think people should be organizing and making sure that they have systems themselves that can counter her hate.
I think at the end of the day, community is resilient, and the trans community is so much stronger together, and we have proved that time after time, year after year, decade after decade. This too shall pass, if that makes sense.
Well, we just gotta really look out for each other. I know that within the community there's a lot of like gatekeeping and like, well, you're not trans enough, but no, we just gotta protect all trans people no matter what type of trans person they are. Like all queer people are valid in my eyes, and like we have so much against us that we don't need to be against each other.
Building community is the number one most important thing that someone who's facing harassment can do.
Throughout all of fucking human history, no one has had our back. And I do not expect people to. The only people that we can rely on is our community.
Like, just reaching out to existing organizations and websites can be really fun too. And those are things you can do pretty anonymously, so you won't be harassed.
And community is truly the most important part of my life. Be it the stand-up community, be it the queer community, be it the trans community, be it, like, fucking people that I went to college with. You gotta do what you can do to make it suck less. And if that's, like, going out dancing, if that's, like, having a random little one-night stand, if that's spending time with your girlfriend, whatever, if it's, you know, going to a trans space, like, that's what it is.
Engaging with trans people in real life, if that's possible, just making lunch or dinner together, it has a big impact on your mental health, and it's very positive.
Do what you gotta do. If you need to go home and spend time with your mom and have her do your laundry for free, do that.
I will gladly say that Libs of TikTok is a terrorist account. She engages in white supremacy and white nationalist terrorism. I have a hot trans lawyer, and Chaya Rachik is a domestic terrorist. And she can come after me all she wants, but this is just a fact. This has been posted online before, and she's a public figure, so she can suck my inverted tranny dick.
Evan Powers is a trans student at an Oklahoma high school who says he's, quote, quite honestly scared to go to school every day. I've been bullied by people that watch Libs of TikTok, end quote. And the environment makes it nearly impossible to learn. He wears a bulletproof backpack and carries books to use in self-defense. I want to go to college. I want to learn about the world, he says. But people that post these things, it's affecting just being able to sit in a classroom, to sit in a chair and feel safe. There are links in the video description that you can visit to donate and invest in community and mutual aid so people like Evan can have a future. Libs of TikTok is a nightmare. Our larger systems are a nightmare. But as long as queer people continue to support other queer people, maybe things will be okay. We'll be right back. That's our show! Thank you so much to Brick, to our patrons, to Reid, Octavia, our writers, our live studio audience. Give it up for yourselves. Our volunteer crew, to our interviewees, and of course, to Chaya Riot Chick herself. Good night! Hi, thanks so much for watching Late Stage Live with Ella Yurman. That's me, Ella Yurman. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, maybe even throw us a bone and share it around, or leave a comment down below if you're nasty. If you want to support our production needs and help us keep making indie, queer, leftist, late-night comedy, you can head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/latestagelive. That's patreon.com/latestagelive. End of video.